I am Games, and these are opinions.
2002 saw the release of The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers for the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox. It was one of EA's massive AAA releases of the year, and riding on the hype of the Peter Jackson film trilogy at the time, was met with lots of excitement from both the gaming press and the public alike. Surprisingly, The Two Towers was a far better game than your typical movie tie-in of the time. While not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, it was playable, which was more than could be said about other licensed games of its ilk. But the headline feature of the game had nothing to do with the gameplay. EA instead focused its marketing on the visuals of the title. The Two Towers narrative relied heavily on using cinematics ripped straight out of the aforementioned Jackson film trilogy to tell its story. The game would then seamlessly shift from film frames to real-time graphics as the cutscene ended and gameplay began. The visual fidelity needed to accomplish such a trick was almost unheard of at the time and was widely heralded as a result. Of course, this was 15 years ago. If we look at the effect today, it's laughably lackluster. 2002 also saw the release of another fantasy game, but one cut from a completely different cloth. This title was less of a hack and slash and more of an adventure role-playing game, and while similarly a AAA release, its visual language was entirely different in nature. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, despite being a divisive release at the time due to its massive departure in the visual department, does serve as a fantastic contrast to The Two Towers as to how art direction affects the perception of your game over time, and a poster child for the argument that game devs should prioritize art direction over raw poly count. Chasing visual fidelity is a fine endeavor, and I don't knock professionals or hobbyists who pursue it, but the fact of the matter is, when you create a product devoid of any art direction other than make it as real as possible, long-term, all you're really creating is a snapshot of the technical limitations of the time. While jaw-dropping in its day, in 2017, the visuals in The Two Towers are outclassed by free games you can download on an iPhone, and this fact inevitably cheapens the appeal of the game's presentation and betrays the work that went into creating it. All the time, effort, and ingenuity required to push those levels of visuals out of anemic hardware like the PS2 are lost on modern audiences. All that's left on display in the visual presentation of The Two Towers is what it lacks. Contrastly, even today The Wind Waker dazzles, because the star of the show isn't the polygons on screen, but the vision behind how they were assembled. By putting art direction first, The Wind Waker transcends its technical constraints and, for the most part, becomes a timeless aesthetic that ages gracefully. Sure, pixel peepers can scrutinize the game and point out the fact that Link's legs are barely more than hexagons, but these limitations are downplayed by the art direction, not brought to the forefront. By creating a visual language agnostic to the horsepower of the hardware available at the time, instead of developed in concert with it, almost paradoxically, The Wind Waker allows itself a shelf life almost infinitum. All I'm suggesting is that, perhaps, there's some food for thought here.
Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. This is actually a re-upload of an older video I made on my long dead channel that never really got that much traction. It seemed like a good fit for I Am Games, so I figured, fuck it, let's throw it up on here. Feel free to chime in with your thoughts on stylized graphics in the comments below. In addition to working on this channel, I'm also making a game of my own, which you can check the demo out over on Newgrounds. If you like my videos, or the game, I'd love if you could throw me $1 a month over on Patreon so I can keep the videos coming a couple times a week, and spend as much time as possible continuing to develop the game and learn 3D animation and more programming. And if you donate $5 a month, you get access to weekly bonus podcasts just for patrons. That's all I got for now. Until next time, remember to be the games you want to see. I Am Games, signing out.